Hello everyone, and welcome to this video where we look at a computer in my classic computer collection. Now before we launch into today's computer, I just want to set the model that we're going to look at in its historical context. So we're talking about the year 1983, and we're talking about portable computing. Now at that time there were a few choices. One thing you could do was get one of these machines, something like this, which was essentially a computer in a box with a handle on the top. You usually have to find a power socket to plug it in. Or you could get one of these machines like this Epson HX20. Very portable, cute, but look at the size of that LCD screen. And there wasn't much to it. And you couldn't do a lot of serious work like word processing on a little portable like this. So there was certainly room for improvement. And this improvement came from a Japanese company called Kyocera in 1983. And Kyocera came up with quite a revolutionary design. And it's a design which is sold to 3 different distributors throughout the world. They took this design and they made their own small changes, or insisted, I think it was Kyocera that actually manufactured the computer, but to the distributor's specifications. So you ended up with 3 machines that were quite similar. I think of them as non-identical twins. So they shared a lot of characteristics, but they did differ in some areas, fairly minor, but all made from basically the same design. And these machines were the Tandy TRS-80 Model 100, the Olivetti M10, and the NEC PC-8201a. Now, out of those 3 computers, the most famous, most well-known, would be this one here, the Tandy Model 100. It's a lovely machine, and certainly it was wildly popular, especially among people like journalists, and not only because it was highly useful, but because Radio Shack had this extensive distribution network, particularly in North America. So these machines were marketed well, and they appeared near almost every corner of that part of the world. But the subject of this video is not the Model 100, although it's going to make an appearance. It's actually this one here, this NEC PC-8201a. And the reason I'm concentrating on this particular one, rather than its more famous cousin, is that for me, the NEC model's the nostalgic favourite, because it was my second computer, the second one I ever owned. I bought it in late 1984 and used it right through until about 1987. So it served me well at that time, and it is a nostalgic favourite. There are other videos on the Model 100s, so this one's largely devoted to the NEC PC-8201a. Although the Model 100 will be making an appearance from time to time, particularly when I want to have a look at the differences between the 2 models. So let's have a look at the NEC PC-8201a. The NEC 8201a and the TRS-80 Model 100 both went on sale in New Zealand about mid-1984. In preparation for this video, I looked hard for glossy ads for both these machines in our local national computer magazine, New Zealand Bits and Bytes. And I didn't find any. The magazine did review the machine in July 1984, but the only attempt at marketing, at least in that publication, was this simple note on the same page as a review of the machine. In fact, the Model 100 was reviewed as well, and its advertisement was far more impressive. Now note, these machines are exactly the same price, $1,795, which was a lot of money those days. Now just for reference, that equated to about $900 US at the time. Anyway, despite the more impressive Model 100 ad, the NEC was more widely available, and soon I had one, as this photo from 1984 shows. It was a real boon for me and very useful.
By this time I'd started teaching at the local university, and it was great for writing papers, reports, preparing lecture materials and gathering experimental data. It was a fantastically useful machine. I sold it around 1987, but just had to reacquire one for the collection. Being the second computer I ever owned, it was a nostalgic favourite. So here it is. Comes in a lovely black leather case. Just slips out, and what a beautiful machine. I just love the colours, that sort of off-white and mushroom-coloured keys. It's just a very attractive thing to look at. The first thing I want to draw your attention to is the LCD screen. With a text resolution of 40 columns by 8 lines, this was way larger than other portables then on the market. There was also graphics capability. Here's how it worked. Memory could hold up to 24 programs or data files, which were visible from this main menu, and were just a cursor move and button press away from loading. It was dead simple at a time when micros were generally complicated to use. Furthermore, all of these files were held in memory, even when the machine was switched off. This was possible through a tiny current supplied by the main battery or backup battery, and this meant data was instantly available when the machine was switched on. No boot up time, just like our phones and tablets today. There were 3 programs built into the NEC 8201a. These were BASIC, the basic interpreter, text and telecom. The Model 100 had these programs also, but there were 2 additional ones, a scheduling program and a simple address program. You can see we've got another couple of programs there in this particular memory bank, tank.ba and snake. Those are 2 basic programs. So you just select programs by moving the cursor and pushing enter. Now a full bank of memory was 32K, but the NEC had the capability to add extra banks. In fact, it could add up to 3 extra banks. And you could access them in a mode called bank switching. So here we're looking at one bank, and you can see we've got our 2 basic programs in there, tank and snake. And I've just switched it to a second bank, which you can see is empty apart from our 3 basic programs. And you can see down the bottom there, that's got 28K available. And now we're back to our original or first bank. So this was a very handy feature that enabled you to keep a lot of files on the machine if it had been expanded in this way. The Model 100 didn't have this feature. For that machine, you could only have 1 bank. So let's have a look at the BASIC, and it is a Microsoft BASIC, so it's pretty familiar. In fact, it's very much like the IBM PC BASIC, the BASIC that came with that. So quite an extended command set. You could do lots of different things with it. We'll just print out some of the characters here, so we'll just show you what's in the character set. In this NEC model, part of the character set was empty because you could define your own characters if you wanted to in the upper part of the ASCII set. The Model 100, on the other hand, these characters were already predefined, so you had sort of PETSCI type graphic characters there, but you can see there's some blank areas here in the NEC model. Now, if you wanted to save a program, you could just use some of the function keys there. So we'll save this program, we'll call it Teza, and that saves it to RAM, so that when we exit BASIC and go back to our main menu, there it is, ready to be called up at any time. So it's just a matter of pushing enter, and there our program runs. So pretty convenient. Editing BASIC was very easy. It was just a matter of putting your cursor in the place where you want to make the change, making it, and then pushing enter to cement it in, and it was all done. I want to show you one of the other programs now. This is the text editor, and it's a simple editor which will allow you to type in notes, text, which you can then either print directly or format with a basic program. and then print it, or put it out through the RS-232 to a larger machine, which is what I tended to mostly do. So I'll just type a couple of sentences in here. A keyboard's got a really, really good feel, and it's the same with the Model 100. These keyboards are just great. Really good to type on. It's a good firm action, good travel. Has some basic functions in the editor, so you can search for things. So I've just typed in a string there, text, and you can see the cursors now on it. So that's pretty useful. Also, you can do some basic cutting and pasting, or copying and pasting. So we'll just cut that little bit out there, and move along to the end, and we'll put it at the end using the paste key. And there we go. So some basic functionality there. We escape out of the text editor, and there we can see a new file, teza.do, which means it's a text file. So again, just by pushing enter, we can open that up, and we've got our file back. Very simple to use, very easy to manage. I haven't covered the third program, Telcom, yet, but I'll get back to that in this video a little later. But for now, let's have a look at the front of our NEC 8201a. Well set out keyboard. As I've mentioned, it's a joy to type on. But you note the diamond pattern cursors and the paste, insert and delete backspace keys next to them. These are very handy for text editing. You can see 5 function keys there visible, although there were actually 10, depending on whether or not the shift key was depressed. Moving around the side, we can see the on-off switch and an adjustment wheel for the contrast. And this was important as the visibility of the LCD screen was within quite a narrow viewing angle. So turning this knob ensured optimum viewing at whatever angle the user was looking down on the unit at. Now the screen's not backlit and relies on ambient reflected light to be seen. And you couldn't use it in low light conditions, so you really couldn't use it in bed, so when your partner's asleep next to you. That really wasn't possible. Not when the light was off anyway. So now we've come around the back of the machine with the ports modestly covered up. So if we just remove those covers, there you can see them exposed. So from left to right, we've got a power socket for the AC adapter, a switch to protect the hidden memory banks from being overwritten, a reset button, 2 serial ports for various devices, a barcode reader, a parallel printer port, and an RS-232 port below that, and finally on the right a socket for a cassette recorder. The Model 100 has similar ports, although the power socket and the barcode reader are on the sides. One extra thing the Model 100 does have over the 8201a is a built-in modem, so at the time you could connect the Model 100 directly to your phone lines. However, this feature couldn't be used in New Zealand, as, to my knowledge anyway, the Model 100 modems weren't compatible with the New Zealand telephone network. The left side has a docking bay. Internally, you could expand the NEC 8201a to 64K, so you could have 2 banks of RAM internally, and you could use this docking bay to add a third bank of 32K RAM, which could be plugged in here. Now this pack, the pack that plugged into this docking bay, had its own battery, so it could retain the memory contents when removed from the machine. So with one of these plugged in the machine, you could carry 96K RAM. And if you had a number of these banks, these portable banks, you really had unlimited memory, because you could keep some of these in your case and just keep plugging them in to either save your work or access work that you might have with you. As you can see in this photo, the Model 100 was very similar. Keyboard layout is slightly different though. For example, the cursor keys are chiclet and they're in a line at the top right. The NEC is also slightly thicker and more angled than the Tandy offering, which gives for a nice typing angle, but the penalty is that it's also slightly heavier than the Model 100. Here as the machine opened up, the keyboard's just folded down off to the right of the screen. Processor is 80C85, running at 2.46 megahertz, and that's a low-powered CMOS chip. Note the sockets there for RAM expansion for Bank 2. What you're looking at there are actually the bottom of the sockets. The expanded RAM chips are plugged in from the other side, that being the bottom of the case. So under that large cover there, if we'd whip that off, we'd see sockets for that RAM expansion. Notice the little battery compartment up there on the top left, that held 4 standard AA batteries, or owners could elect to get a rechargeable NiCad pack instead of just a standard one if they wished. And here we can see the bottom of the circuit board for the keyboard. That's the one at the bottom, and the LCD screen at the top. Just before we leave the innards, I'm going to show you the NEC circuit board again, and then quickly switch to the Model 100. So you can see it's actually quite different, a very different layout, but of course quite similar components. I've also got this little tape recorder that goes with the NEC model for loading in software from cassette. That just plugs into the cassette port, just like that. So that ends the tour of the hardware. Now, just before we move on to looking at the manuals, I just want to show you this interesting difference between the two machines. Now, both these machines have got a simple counting loop program that they're running. It's exactly the same code, and you can see there the NEC is going a lot faster than the Model 100. Now, the reason for this, apparently, is that the Model 100, by default, uses double precision variables, where the NEC uses single precision variables. So if you are doing some programming, it's very important, particularly for the Model 100, that you define your integers as integers or single precision. Otherwise, it's quite a slow execution of the BASIC if you don't let it know exactly what those variables should be. So now on to the manuals. This is the NEC's user guide. A nice little manual. It's paperback size. Got all the information that you'd want. Pretty good treatment of the material. Covers basic usage of the machine in a very sort of straightforward style. So there's nothing too whimsical about this one. Talks about the three main programs, Basic Interpreter, the Text Editor, and Telcom, all treated well. Next we have the basic manual. This is also pretty good. Covers all the major commands, and with every command you also get a listing that shows what that command does. So in many ways it's a very useful tutorial manual as well. Now, another thing that came with this manual was a fold-out reference card, and it's really the only bit of literature I haven't got for the NEC that I am looking for. So if you see it, let me know. Now, the Model 100 took a different approach. It was a much larger manual, and it really combined the user guide and the basic reference together in one fairly sizable manual, very neatly presented and nicely done. Contained everything that you needed, typical of Tandy manuals. They were pretty well produced generally. So that's the one for my Model 100. It's good to have all these manuals. I always try to make a point of getting manuals for the machines I've got. One thing you could buy when you got your shiny NEC portable was this personal application kit, which came on cassette. A manual came with it, and it had some pretty useful programs. These were programs that you could use for personal use or for business use. And this manual explained them fairly fully. So armed with a cassette recorder, that particular tape and this manual allowed you to do some good things with your NEC 8201a. So here are some of the programs. You can see memory calculator there. There's a text formatter, schedule keeper, loan evaluator, terminal mode selector. Notice a couple of games here at the bottom, tank game and snake game. They're fun to play, and in fact I'll show you just snippets of those right now. So first up is tank, and you can see our little tank there? There's a small tank towards the centre, just moving along. You can blast bits of the wall, and of course you can get the enemy tank just like I have right now. And here's the second one. This is Snake. The idea with Snake is to push these small triangles around so that you actually trap the snake in a very small, increasingly small section of the screen, and eventually if you can't get out and you squeeze them right up, you've won the game. Now just to finish off, I want to show you this third program that was built in. This is Telcom, and this is a very nostalgic trip for me because this is exactly how I used to communicate with the IBM PC at work back in the day, using Telcom. So we've got a file in the NEC at the moment. We're going to upload it to my PC. File's called fv.do, which is a text file, and you can see the computer's hooked up to my PC there, and we're running the same communications package that I used to use back in 1984 on the IBM PC. It's exactly the same one. So now we're going to upload a file, so it's asked us to give the file a name on the disk, so we call it fv.2.txt. Says that we're ready for the file transfer. It's going to write it to the B disk on this machine because of course it was written for a twin floppy system. So we'll go back to the NEC now and start the upload. So push enter, and you can see there that little highlighted menu option actually says up, which means we're transferring, and there you can see the text flowing across the RS-232 onto the floppy disk on the B drive that's attached to this machine. So just as it did back in the day. Now it takes quite a while for this file to load up, so I'm going to use some editing and just chop it to the end, so you don't have to wait for all of that. Okay, so file transfer complete. It's all done. This particular program is one that I wrote myself. I didn't write it all. I think I typed out the very guts of it from a book, but I certainly amended it specifically for this purpose, and you can see my name there. It was one that was very useful at work, and in fact I distributed it around once people started to get PCs because they found it quite a useful type of program. So that was a real nostalgia blast for me, digging that out and transferring some files just as I did in the day.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that close look at the NEC PC-8201a. Remarkably, there is a very active user group that still supports these machines, and if you're interested in them, or if you have one of these machines, you can join this group. There's a lot of postings on the mailing list. I'll put the website address in the notes that accompany this video, so if you want to go and have a look, by all means do so. And I'd just like, in closing off, to thank one of the members of that list, Steve Adolph. Steve lives in Canada, and about a week after I had received my NEC, it actually broke. One of the logic chips failed. I couldn't diagnose it, but Steve offered to have a look at it, so off it went to Canada. Steve diagnosed the problem, he fixed it, and not only that, but he also expanded the memory. So it's just a reflection of the sort of support that you can get from the vintage computer community, members of it. When you've got a problem. So thanks very much, Steve. I certainly owe you a beer if you're ever over here in New Zealand. So that's it from me. Until next time, keep well, and we'll see you in the next video.